Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are cracking open a really interesting book by Richard Lionheart called Why Indigos Don't Have a Box. You know, it's really a guide for anyone who's ever felt like they just don't quite fit the mold. We're going to break down all the core ideas for you.
So, the book kicks off with this really powerful idea. Right away, it challenges that whole 9 to 5, a steady job is the goal mentality. It makes you stop and ask, hey, whose dream am I actually building here? Is it mine? And that really sets the stage for this much bigger conversation about, conformity versus true personal freedom.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First up, we'll get into what an indigo even is, kind of the hero of this whole story. Then, we're going to look at the world they're apparently trapped in. The book calls it the Matrix. After that, we'll talk about the big catalyst for change, and finally, we'll get into the step-by-step blueprint for breaking free.
All right, first things first, let's talk about the main character of this book. Who exactly is an indigo? Because the author paints a pretty specific picture here, and it's of someone who might not even realize this term applies to them. So the author basically describes indigos as folks who've always felt, just a little out of step with everyone else. Think about it. You probably know someone like this, that person in a meeting or in class who has these brilliant, totally out-of-the-box ideas, but they just keep them to themselves so they don't rock the boat. That right there, that's the heart of the indigo identity, this feeling of being different but having to kind of push it down just to fit in.
Okay, so if these indigos feel so different, the big question is, different from what? Well, the book argues they're living inside a whole system that's designed to keep them down, a system it calls, pretty dramatically, the Matrix.
And to really hammer this point home, the author pulls out this quote from Bruce Lipton. The message here is simple but powerful. Stop thinking of The Matrix as some cool sci-fi movie. Instead, start seeing it as a documentary about the really subtle systems of control that are running in the background of our own lives.
So what exactly is this Matrix then? According to the book, it's not just about, external rules and laws. No, it's deeper. It's an internal program that gets installed in us when we're kids, in those really formative first few years. It's all the beliefs we soak up from our parents, from school, from society, all the stuff that tells us what we can and can't do. It basically builds a cage around our own minds.
And here you can see what the author believes are the main pillars holding this whole system up. The book makes a pretty bold claim that everything from the news we consume and the schools we attend to the very food that's on our plates, it's all part of this giant machine designed to program our reality and, keep us in line.
But here's the thing. According to the book, this whole system isn't built to last. It's actually on the verge of a huge, massive shift. And the thing that's going to kick it all off? It's something pretty wild. A channeled message that's meant to be a wake-up call for all of humanity.
Okay, so this is where things take a turn into the more mystical side of things. The book focuses on this communication called the Aryan message, which is said to come from this higher consciousness called the Council of Nine. Now, whether you take that literally or just as a metaphor, its purpose in the story is clear. It's an urgent call to action. It's basically saying the time for indigos to wake up and step into their power is right now.
And listen, the changes this message predicts, they're not small. We are not talking about minor tweaks to society. It's outlining a future where basic things we take for granted, like money, jobs, even the need to eat so much food, they all become obsolete. It's this vision of humanity leveling up, developing new abilities like healing with energy and getting rid of all those top-down hierarchies.
So you might be thinking, with a massive change like that supposedly on the way, what are you supposed to do? How do you prepare? Well, the book doesn't just leave you hanging with all this theory. It gives you a practical, step-by-step plan. It's called the 10-Day Freedom Blueprint.
So here's the rundown of the 10 days. And as you can see, it's a pretty holistic plan. Right? It covers everything from your mindset and what you eat to your spiritual practices. To give you a better idea of how this actually works, let's dive a little deeper into one of these. We're going to look at Day 8, which is all about the people in your life.
So Day 8 gets into what might be one of the biggest and often hidden roadblocks to our own growth, the people we surround ourselves with. The author uses this really powerful metaphor for draining relationships, calling the people in them black roses. So what's a black rose? The book defines them as people who have this sort of one-way valve when it comes to energy. And you totally know the type, right? You hang out with them and you leave feeling completely exhausted, but they seem totally energized. They're always taking your time, your support, your good vibes, but they never really give anything back.
And to help you spot these kinds of dynamics in your own life, the book gives you this checklist.
It's really just a series of questions to make you think about how you genuinely feel when you're around certain people. Like, do they always pour cold water on your big ideas? Do you literally feel drained after you see them? The point isn't to go around slapping labels on people, but to become more aware of the relationships that might be quietly holding you back.
So there you have it. We've just walked through a pretty radical blueprint from one book on how to break free from the way things are supposed to be. It offers one path to what it calls freedom. But that brings us to the biggest question of all, one that's way bigger than any single book. And that's, what does thinking outside the box and really living your own authentic life, what does that actually mean to you?